As a result of these gigantic losses, foreign nations now own $26 trillion more of American assets than think of this, than the Americans own of their own foreign assets or other foreign assets.
It is a disaster. It's mainly affecting the car industry.
If you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your product in America. Terminate your own tariffs, drop your barriers, don't manipulate your currencies. They manipulate their currencies like nobody can even believe, which is a bad, bad thing and very devastating to us.
Standing before a gathering of business leaders and government officials, Keir Starmer tries to project confidence in the face of Donald Trump's just-declared tariffs. The Prime Minister strikes a tight posture, and his sentences are precisely calibrated.
The tariffs will also hurt consumers around the world. It will be felt immediately. Millions of citizens will face higher grocery bills. Medication will cost more, as well as transportation. Inflation will go up. And this is hurting in particular the most vulnerable citizens.
Watchers see the strain in his jaw. He's very conscious of the high risks. But while he talks, promising a cool head and no gimmicks, detractors see the signals of a leader overburdened trying to tell an increasingly dubious public he can save Britain's economy. As Starmer declares he's defending national interests, the possibility of reciprocal tariffs from Washington looms large on the stage. Evidence of Starmer's well-managed relationships breaking under Trump's aggressive trade policies. Make sure to like and subscribe.
As it is for the British people. So we move now to the next stage of our plan.
The juxtaposition of Trump's bold tariff demands with Starmer's cautious voice exposes a developing concern. The UK Prime Minister lacks the strong leadership needed to negotiate a world where large personalities like Trump rule the trade scene. Rather, Starmer has a history of discreetly undoing audacious pledges, taxing he once promised not to, and scuttling ideas under the cover of pragmatism.
That working people need to get on with their lives. That is how we have acted and how we will continue to act, with pragmatism, cool and calm heads.
Donald Trump releases a list of reciprocal tariffs on many nations across the Atlantic concurrently. He jumbles off figures: 46% for Japan, 34% for China, 20% for the EU, gleefully declaring that the United States has been the piggy bank of the globe for far too long.
And our very way of life, it's a very great threat to our country. And for these reasons, starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations.
He attacks sleepy Joe Biden's last year, pointing out how the US lost manufacturing jobs under Biden's direction, then skyrocketed under his own previous presidency.
In sleepy Joe Biden's last year in office, the United States hemorrhaged 100,000 manufacturing jobs, and the number was going through the roof at levels never seen before, and our trade deficit reached a record $1.2 trillion, which is unheard of.
Starmer strives to keep a dignified calm while Trump welcomes bold confrontation, supporting the principle that nobody should be given a free ride at America's expense.
In sleepy Joe Biden's last year in office, the United States hemorrhaged 100,000 manufacturing jobs, and the number was going through the roof at levels never seen before, and our trade deficit reached a record $1.2 trillion, which is unheard of.
One cannot help but feel, while observing Trump talk, that Starmer's method, long-winded references to slow-moving negotiations, pales in comparison to the flamboyant directness of the American president. Trump radiates relentless determination even if his approach is harsh around the margins. By contrast, Starmer stresses cooled heads and the next stage of our plan, never really explaining how Britain may neutralise tariffs that could destroy vital sectors like car manufacture. But will that be effective?
Other nations, it's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating.
British companies understand the weight of Trump's threat. The the single biggest export market for the UK is the United States. Starmer insists his administration will not let British businesses suffer in a worldwide trade war, therefore helping to allay these fears. From his own statements, though, it is clear he has no easy fix. He speaks of intangible levers at our disposal, discussions with businesses across the country.
Other nations, it's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating.
Critics, however, remember how frequently his government has overpromised and underdelivered in terms of council tax freeze, illegal migration management, or inflation control.
A trade war is bad for working people and bad for our businesses, and I don't think we should jump straight into a trade war. I think it is better if we're able to negotiate a better outcome, and that's what we are attempting to do.
We want a deal, but we won't rule anything out, he says, characterising his approach as cautious. That sounds to some like uncertainty, rather than deliberate ambiguity. After all, nothing off the table may imply reciprocal levies from the UK, yet Starmer's statement barely radiates the conviction required to press such a policy.
We have a range of levers at our disposal, and we will continue our work with businesses across the country.
The collision of these draws attention to a conflict of leadership approaches. On one side, we have Trump listing tariff rates and advocating half-reciprocal policies with relentless conviction.
And we will continue our work with businesses across the country to discuss their assessment of the options.
He flashes a chart combining trade restrictions, currency manipulation, and stolen intellectual property. Conversely, Starmer offers a cool analysis of the new era of global commerce, characterising the situation as though it were an abstract problem rather than an instantaneous existential threat to Britain's manufacturing industries.
But nothing is off the table. We have to understand that
Trump's crowing about how he took in hundreds of billions from tariffs contrasts with Starmer's pleading for moderation and repeated assertion, nobody wins in a trade war. Other countries expressed their irritation as well.
And for these reasons, starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we...
This is a common argument among supporters of free trade, but the challenge is whether Starmer can organise a worldwide coalition in time to offset Trump's strong-handed unilateralism. Viewers worry the Prime Minister is behind the curve, compelled to respond to events shaped by Trump instead of developing his own agenda. According to Lord Sugar, this is what he said.
It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%. We're going to charge them 46% tariff.
At one point, Starmer tries to conjure optimism about an economic prosperity deal with the US. He claims negotiations are continuing, that the UK will fight for a best deal for Britain. Starmer attempts at one point to inspire hope about an economic prosperity deal with the United States. According to him, negotiations are still under progress, and the UK would fight for a best deal for Britain.
President Trump referred to reciprocal tariffs. A reciprocal tariff would be 0, not 10%. The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership.
Many, however, remember how under past governments transatlantic trade treaties fell short over intellectual property conflicts, regulatory differences and agricultural standards. Trump's uncompromising posture on America First could crush whatever hope Starmer could have finalised a friendlier deal.
So I don't know what negotiation we can have with this man, because he's not an easy man. He's very set in his ways. And the only way to succeed with Donald Trump is to make sure that it seems to be his idea, if you understand what I mean.
If the US tariffs have already driven Britain into capitulating, the Prime Minister's promise that he will only negotiate a deal if it is in our national interest sounds hollow.
nobody wins in a trade war, That is not in our national interest. We have a fair and balanced trade relationship with the US. Negotiations on an economic prosperity deal.
Critics point out Starmer never addresses the mismatch in leverage even when he discusses continuous negotiations. Especially post-Brexit, the US economy lags behind Britain's. How will Starmer defend it to an audience already unhappy over council tax increases, a stuttering economy, and broken promises if Trump grabs the opportunity to force British negotiators into terrible concessions? Viewers see a prime leader who substituted one ineffective system with the EU for a fragile reliance on a US trade agreement that might never come to pass.
And today we're standing up for the American worker, and we are finally putting America first.
Reading out the percentages for China, the EU, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, India, and more, as Trump outlines his proposal line by line, he mocks past US administrations for neglecting to challenge trade deficits. He flaunts the idea that reciprocal tariffs are kind. After all, he says he could just equal their full rates, but he is being kind by applying just half. Trump's strong argument that these policies are long overdue seems to eclipse Starmer's modest criticism. Nobody wins in a trade war. Starmer looks weak because of exactly the rhetorical mismatch.
Negotiations on an economic prosperity deal, one that strengthens our existing trading relationship, they continue.
The attempts of the Prime Minister to assert calm, logical policy fail in light of a noisy American president blatantly altering the rules. Time is running out to adapt for British businesses, especially those in financial services or automobile sectors. Starmer's commitment to not rule anything out doesn't cut it, particularly if regular Brits see their employment opportunities jeopardised by trade restrictions Starmer obviously can't prevent. Starmer emphasises throughout his speech mostly the idea that the UK will remain cool-headed. He recalls his first speech as Prime Minister, stressing the need of peaceful administration. In practice, though, this hesitation can seem more like passivity in the face of a clear challenge. Every time the Prime Minister mentions no gimmicks or national interest, detractors remember how he used same language in previous policy areas, only to implement half measures and violate past agreements.
On our response, all I can say is that there will be one.
Still, is it really fair and balanced? According to Trump's reciprocal tariff list, some goods may have partial duties applied to the UK. Starmer never details the particular threat or how he will defend British exporters. The conflict is obvious. Either the Prime Minister gives ground or orders reprisal. Nothing is off the table, he argues, although many feel reluctant to act in any way that would raise hostilities, therefore exposing the UK to exploitation.
Have been charging us, so the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that.
Starmer expresses concern for working families battered by inflation, tax increases, and now possible tariff price surges by often referencing protecting the pound in people's pockets.
Let me be clear with the House. A trade war is in nobody's interests.
Still, the pound has wobbled under his direction, in part from ongoing trade relationship anxiety. Viewers remember how fast the Prime Minister turned around on some domestic taxes, increasing national insurance after promising not to. Would additional consumer items get more expensive if he had to react against US taxes? Starmer's indeterminate posture creates an unstable environment that ironically compromises his own declared top concern, security for working people.
And that is exactly what is required today.
Critics groan at the remarks. If that is indeed the case, why is the Prime Minister straying from a situation that might lead to more taxes, job losses in some industries, or more import costs? Starmer's words seem strangely disconnected from the reality families experience without a strong or logical plan. Starmer's promise that any agreement with the United States must be in the national interest adds still another element. On paper, that would seem rather robust. Critics in reality believe the Prime Minister has no fallback strategy. What should Starmer do if talks fall short or if Trump asks concessions on drugs or agriculture? Risk a full-fledged trade war destroying Britain's automotive sector, or give in and let cheap American goods flood British markets, endangering local farmers? Every situation calls for turmoil. This fragility emphasises how Starmer's cool-headedness could turn into inertia, allowing Trump to set conditions.
The tariffs will also hurt consumers around the world. It will be felt immediately. Millions of citizens will face higher grocery bills. Medication will cost more, as well as transportation. Inflation will go up. And this is hurting in particular the most vulnerable citizens.
That disclaimer, however, could force Starmer to surrender in a vulnerable economic environment. Many analysts contend that actual negotiating power belongs on the side ready to apply pressure. Trump seems at ease with conflict based on his consistent success with unilateral tariffs. Has Starmer shown the same determination? Trump confirms the notion that governments who fail to oppose foreign exploitation abandon their own workers as he drones on about past trade deals, especially his animus for NAFTA, or the worst trade deal ever made. Although Starmer says he is defending British businesses, many people find his quick turn from pro-Labour rhetoric to imposing levies that impede production unacceptable. Trump, meanwhile, shows his approach as righting long-standing injustices. Many in the UK see the cautious rhetoric of the Prime Minister on not wanting a trade war to expose a lack of clear principles.
Our country, or even for Canada, just a big mess. It's probably going to hurt us economically a bit.
Starmer aims to exude confidence, at one point saying, "This government will do everything necessary to defend the national interest of the United Kingdom." But observers point out how often the Prime Minister reiterated identical lines in prior crises, such as his promise to freeze council tax or address the Channel crossing issue, only to produce half-hearted responses. Given his steady track record, everything necessary may produce very little actual change.
Protects the pound in their pocket that they work so hard to earn for their families.
A deeper crisis of faith is shown by the discrepancy between these great promises and Starmer's cautious attitude. When he is historically focused on avoiding conflict, is it feasible for him to enact strong measures like negotiating deals with China or implementing reciprocal tariffs? Trump laughs about not matching them entirely, but imposing half as he reels off each nation's rating: 67% from China, 39% from the EU, 90% from Vietnam. He portrays it as kindness. Though many find it shocking, it speaks to US voters who value a leader they consider to be advocating American businesses. The Prime Minister's unwillingness to adopt a similarly frank posture for Britain could come seen as cowardice. Can Starmer really claim to be defending UK businesses attacked by foreign competition if he decides not to respond proportionately?
Nonetheless, I want to be clear. I will only strike a deal if it is in our national interest.
Watchers question if Starmer, facing that approach, would give in during discussions. Although Trump's approach is to raise regardless until the other side folds, he has indicated a reluctance to do so. The Prime Minister's stance, "We don't want a trade war," runs the danger of being interpreted as an invitation for the White House to press harder. This dynamic makes some wonder if Starmer can adequately protect British manufacturers of steel or cars should new US taxes strike them.
A single shipyard in China now produces more ships every year than all of the American shipyards combined. Think of that.
Starmer's brand during the past year has been practical government, rejecting what he refers to as gimmicks from past governments. But viewers find how tragically unoriginal his ideas seem. A strong plan does not come from summits with companies, ethereal references to our next stage, or repetitive "nothing is off the table" disclaimers. Trump's heavy-handedness may, however, help to drive renegotiations or expand foreign markets for American goods. Should the Prime Minister continue to preach peace while the United States taxes British exports, the crisis might wipe out whole industries.
Will make our economy stronger and more resilient. Because this government will do everything necessary to defend the UK's national interest. Everything necessary to provide the foundation of security that working people need.
Brazil, 10%, 10%. Bangladesh is 74%. So you see what's going on. Pakistan, 58%. Sri Lanka, 88%. So what we're doing is we're taking not the full, we could take the full 88%. Thanks a lot, Harold. He's doing a very good job. How's he doing, all right?
Many see our work with businesses as a euphemism for more bureaucratic roundtables and slow reactions. Maybe damage will be done by the time Starmer chooses his response. Domestically, Starmer is under fire for allowing inflation continue and for waversing on taxation. Globally, he wants to seem friendly with the EU and attract American goodwill. Trump's proposed tariffs expose the UK's vulnerability to be left with less than ideal agreements on both sides of the pond. Should the Prime Minister seek more cooperation with the EU in order to counterbalance lost US trade, he may irritate supporters of Brexit. If he stays silent in facing Trump's list of reciprocal tariffs, British businesses suffer. Detractors perceive simply a Prime Minister always in reactive mode, not a clear road from Starmer. Trump names China, Japan, the EU. He lumps the UK among those that use the US in some respects as he name-drops nations. He notes historical trade deficits and mentions cars, electronics, banking. Britain may not have the large surplus others do, but it remains a target should Trump decide additional, discounted reciprocals are needed. If the White House views the UK as an easy target, Starmer's attempt to deny a trade war may seem naive. The track record of the Prime Minister, pledging one thing and delivering another, might undermine his credibility in discussions. Trump enjoys pointing up such flaws as leverage.
So today marks a new stage in our preparations. We have a range of levers at our disposal.
You bring it up, Howard. This is our great Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thanks, Howard. So, if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs.
Economists caution that the UK's faltering economy may suffer even more if the Prime Minister fails to find a quick solution. Already hit by unclear post-Brexit policies, the automobile industry could suffer if the US imposes further taxes on British-built vehicles. Starmer's promise to fight for the best deal could be too general. Seeking a fair share or closing the gap means little, without strict boundaries in discussions. Observers remember that the Prime Minister formerly boasted of better trade accords post-Brexit. Today he seems eclipsed by a US President who scorns worldwide consensus in favour of direct unilateral action. When these are woven together, a picture of a Prime Minister trying to keep cool as Donald Trump quickly changes the trading scene shows. Though allusions to cool heads and no winners in a trade war abound throughout Starmer's speech, opponents see prudence turning into uncertainty. By contrast, Trump exudes chest-thumping bravado and displays a chart proving his readiness to inflict reciprocal tariffs, therefore overshadowing any subdued actions from Britain.
I think it's pretty ridiculous and a slap in the face to our allies. Like, you guys have our back, you stimulate our economy.
It might cost us more in the long run, down here. And
on the changes I believe will make our economy stronger and more resilient.
Still, many in Britain wonder if Starmer actually has the backbone required for everything necessary. Previous domestic policy changes, such as taxing he formerly opposed, suggest he could either concede or embrace partial measures. The repetitive disclaimers of the Prime Minister, "We're living in a changing world, we must rise to this challenge," lack the force required to allay industry concerns that the government is out of sync with an aggressive global reality. Donald Trump's strategy, meanwhile, appeals to voters who view him as levelling the playing field for American workers, even if it is contentious. In the last examination, Starmer appears tethered to contradicting impulses, attempting to uphold a fragile consensus in face of a White House that welcomes confrontation. If he's reluctant to challenge strongly, his promise that nothing is off the table could seem false. Alternatively, should he object, a trade war he says none benefits may be started. That double bind emphasises why many opponents label Starmer a Prime Minister in perpetual retreat, eclipsed by more powerful leaders like Trump, who rewrite trade terms with a tsunami of new levies. The issue still is, given an American president eager to disrupt world supply networks, can Starmer's moderate, quiet approach really protect Britain's economy? Given the mismatch in rhetorical assurance, Starmer's hesitancy leaves the UK exposed. His repeated assertions of cool and calm governance only cover an absence of clear policy. Once the dust settles, we find a Prime Minister who seems unprepared for the difficult negotiations required to defend Britain's position in a changing global order, his measured words overwhelmed by Trump's swaggering declarations.